Today the readings are about prayer. Moses is praying for the armies. Joshua is defending Israel from the invading Amalekites. And Moses, an old man, holds up his hands in prayer on the ridge overlooking the battle, but he grows tired, and when he droops down, the Amalekites begin to win the battle. So he's, got to get these up. And this battle lasted, 8, 10, 12 hours? Have you ever tried to hold your hands out for even more than 15 minutes? It's hard to do a holy hour before the Blessed Sacrament. It's to keep your mind and body focused in prayer for any length of time is challenging. So Aaron and Hur, his two helpmates, said, "Sit down, Moses, we will hold your hands up." So prayer is a communal action. We all gather in this church together on Sunday Mass to hold each other's hands up in prayer, to support each other in our long prayer times. Mass is an hour, and just by you praying, you inspire and hold up other people in prayer. When you sing the hymns and the parts of the Mass, when you are focused on the Eucharist, other people are strengthened in their prayer. So we help each other to pray. Jesus says in the Gospel, don't give up on prayer. The necessity to pray always and not to grow weary. That's not easy to do, friends. That's why I say we need to support each other in our efforts to pray unceasingly. Today is also World Mission Sunday. There will be a second offering for the foreign missions, for those who go out from their houses to bring the gospel to others. They take Christ into the streets. My favorite missionary is Mother Teresa of Calcutta, who founded the Missionaries of Charity. She left her home in Albania, and she said, "It was the hardest thing I ever did, to leave my mother and my brother and my sister and go to Dublin to be a Loreto sister." Her mother said, as she was leaving on the train, her name was Agnes before she became Mother Teresa. She said, "Agnes, put your hand in Our Lady's hand and never look back. Because if you look back, you will go back." So Mother set her face towards Dublin. She was trained as a sister. She was sent 3 months in a boat to Calcutta, to the steaming heat of Bengal, India, where she worked for 18 years as a school teacher. And then the second hardest thing she was ever asked to do by Jesus was to leave that convent and go into the streets of Calcutta, to be with the poorest of the poor, to be poor with the poor, in one of the poorest cities of the world, Calcutta. So she did that, and she took Jesus into the dark holes of the poor, into the streets. Now, there are many people that do that God calls to leave their comfortable homes and go into the streets, into places where you need to learn a new language, new food, new noise, new sounds. I was in Calcutta for 3 weeks in 97 when Mother was still alive. There was a lot of different smells and sounds and sights in Calcutta. It was difficult. We also normally celebrate today, October 19th, as the Feast of the North American Martyrs. 8 Jesuit priests from France who sailed the ocean blue on a leaky ship to go to Canada, what would become Canada, and all of them died. All of them went through terrible tortures because of their great love for God and their love for the indigenous people. And many indigenous people, many Indians became Christians because of their sacrifice. Isaac Jogues, John de Brebeuf. You can read a little bit about them in the bulletin today in my pastor's message. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about Carlo Acutis. Now, why is the statue of this young man, this teenager, in the front of the church today? Because we have a new shrine to Carlo Acutis that I am going to bless this day. But I want to talk about his life before I do the blessing. And we're going to ask all of you who have, some people brought white flowers, and there are white flowers there that the children can bring up after this sermon to the statue, and I will bless the statue. And then it'll go back to its permanent location in the back of the church. Who was Carlo Acutis? Well, as you know, maybe he was canonized along with Pier Giorgio Frassati on September 7th by Pope Leo in Rome. But in this church, he's the only saint wearing pants. Everybody else has robes on, except that little statue of San Lorenzo Ruiz. But everybody else has kind of like holy robes on, like I'm wearing right now. But he's got just a pair of pants on, and he's got a computer under his arm, because he is the first millennial to be canonized. He's pretty much just like us in many ways, but in some other ways, he's not like us. He was born in 1991, 34 years ago, the same year I was ordained a priest. He was born in London, of a wealthy Italian family working in London. And God gave him extraordinary graces, and that's why he's a saint. But on the outside, he looked pretty normal, pretty usual, like everybody else. A normal Italian teenager. No one in his class, his school, knew that he was a saint. His parents weren't even quite sure what was going on inside of him. His parents were non-practicing Catholics. The vast majority of Europeans are Catholic, but they don't practice their faith. So it was with his parents. But at the age of 3, his grandfather died. His grandfather had much more faith. He would go to Mass on Sundays. And in Italian, the word for grandfather is nonno. Nonno. And Carlo said, Nonno died, and I had a dream about him that he went to Jesus. So he got his coat on after the dream, and he said, take me to church. He was 3 years old. Take me to church so I can pray. Little boy getting his coat on. What are you doing, Carlo? I'm going to church. Okay. Do you need a ride? Yes. Okay, let's go to church. When he was 7 years old, he begged to receive his first Holy Communion, even though his parents never went to Mass. And from that day on, they had to get special permission that he had First Holy Communion in a local Benedictine monastery because no parish would do it. From that day on, he would go to daily Mass, 7 years old, and start doing holy hours before the Blessed Sacrament. Where did he get this? Not from his parents, not from the culture. He got it straight from God. That's why the church has declared him a saint, because of the extraordinary graces that God poured into this boy. Well, they would go to vacations at the beach. They were rich. They were wealthy Italians. What would he do? He would sneak off after a day at the beach to the little parish and pray the rosary with little old ladies. That's kind of strange. His classmates did not find him pious, but he did love animals. He would rescue insects that were drowning in the town pool. Of course, he made friends with a caretaker, so he got that net, hey, could I borrow your net? And he rescued these little bugs from the water. He had weaknesses. He ate too much. Does that sound like anybody here, like us? He ate too much food. He played too many video games, and he talked too much. Maybe like what I'm doing now. But unlike the rest of us, he disciplined himself. So he gave up his favorite food, which was Nutella, every Italian boy's favorite food. No more Nutella, that chocolate spread, no more. He gave up video games. He limited to only 10 minutes a day, 10 minutes video games a day, and he stopped talking so much. He made friends with everybody. He would get to know the servants on the neighborhood because they were wealthy people, so everybody had lots of servants. He would get to know them. They're from Ukraine, from Albania, from Chile. He would get to know them, know their names. He made friends, very good friends, with his tutor, whose name was Rajesh Mohur, who was Hindu, he was Indian, and began to help him. He would teach him the catechism and to pray the rosary. And eventually, Rajesh became Catholic. Rajesh said, slowly, he used to tell me the importance of baptism and so many other things, and I could see the living God in Carlo. Very different for a preteen. He was patient when bullied. Other people would knock him around, and he said, well, Jesus doesn't want me to get angry. But when other people were bullied, he'd jump in and say, hey, knock it off. He would reproach his classmates for making rude comments to girls, and he argued forcefully against pornography, which was becoming a thing back then. He said, my life's plan is always to be close to Jesus. He spontaneously, at the age of 5 years old, his parents took him down to a Basilica of Our Lady in Pompeii, south of Naples. And he went into the church and he knelt down at 5 years old and consecrated himself to Our Lady. He was a gifted programmer. God had given him a keen and acute sense of technology. He was fluent in Java and C++ script. He made 2 famous websites, Eucharistic Miracles and Apparitions of Our Lady. And especially in the Eucharist, he said, the Eucharist is my highway to heaven. Autostrada al cielo in Italian. It doesn't sound so good in Italian. It sounds much better in English. Highway to heaven. That's the Eucharist. He said, when you put yourself in front of the sun, you get tan. But when you put yourself in front of Jesus in the Eucharist, you become a saint. And he died. He was 15 years old, and he got leukemia. He started feeling kind of bad on October 1st, 2014. Within 12 days, he was dead. But he accepted it peacefully. He went to the hospital. His parents took him to the hospital. He said, I would like to leave this hospital, but I know that I will not do so alive. I will give you signs, though, that I am with God. That's what he said to his parents. The chaplain, Father Sandro Villa, said, his pale but serene face surprised me, unthinkable in a seriously ill person, especially in an adolescent. His final words to his mother, Mom, don't be afraid. Since Jesus became a man, death has become the passage towards life. Let us prepare ourselves to experience something extraordinary in the eternal life. So Carlo Acutis went back to God on October 12th, 2014. That's why we're going to bless his statue in this month of October here in Star of the Sea Church. So he shows us the way to heaven. He shows how not to be afraid of death, to make Jesus his all in all. That's his life's plan. We can do that ourselves as well and be as happy as he is. In heaven, Carlo Acutis is supremely happy. So I'd like to invite now all of the people who want to bring white flowers up. We're going to put them in the vases in front of his statue, and I'm going to bless the statue and say the prayer. So all the children want to come up, bring a flower, get a flower from Angela or Mariella, get a flower and bring it up with your parents. So parents, bring up your children, and anybody else who brought white flowers, Now's the time to leap into action, to bring your flowers forward as we bless the statue of Carlo Acutis.